Right, welcome to episode 14, part 2. This is going to be about 45 minutes where I talk through part 2 of the Pink Floyd solo career from the year 2000 and onwards. So, we started the new decade and the new millennia with a very unexpected announcement, which came in May 2001. Which was that David Gilmour would be performing his first solo concert in 17 years at the Royal Festival Hall on the 22nd of June 2001. There was no information around who was going to be in the band, what he was going to be performing, or anything. All we knew is that David would be performing live at the Royal Festival Hall. Tickets were £25, and it was announced in the Evening Standard. And I found out about it the day after tickets had gone on sale. So I rang up the Royal Festival Hall box office about 5:30 in the evening when I was on the train on the way home from work. And I got tickets for row H, like £25. Now that may not sound like anything particularly amazing, but tickets have been on sale for a day and a half. And that was the guy from Pink Floyd performing his first solo show in 17 years. I don't think anyone was expecting it. And the internet wasn't that big a deal at that point. So that was the first time that I got to see a member of Pink Floyd live. It was a very, very strange, very nice show. It was an acoustic, or largely acoustic show, where David performed in a solo capacity with an acoustic guitar. I think he only played an electric guitar on 2 songs. And he performed a number of songs that he hadn't played either live or ever before. This is the DVD that was released in 2002 from the show. It features a number of songs which you would not have expected. So it's got, for example, he's doing a cover version of Syd Barrett's Terrapin. He's playing Fat Old Son for the first time in about 30 years. I didn't even know Fat Old Son at that point. I just the only way I could own or understand music was to be able to buy it. And Pink Floyd stuff never turned up cheap. So I'd not heard Atom Heart Mother until I heard David playing it live, which is, sorry, but forgive me, I was 27 or 26 at the time. The idea that I would ever get to see a member of Pink Floyd live in the flesh was an absurd frippery or an unreachable hope. He also performed some songs from some musicals. He performed, I think it's what's his name, Richard Thompson's "Dimming of the Day." He performed a cover version of "Hushabye Mountain," and he also did a new song called "Smile," which he'd never performed live before. The show was released on DVD, and the DVD contains 3 extra songs on it, which were recorded from another show that he played early the following year. Which tickets were considerably more expensive. I think tickets for that were about £75, and I couldn't afford £75 to see him 6 months after I'd previously seen him. Anyway, and at those shows he performed Dominoes, the Syd Barrett song. He performed Comfortably Numb with Bob Geldof, and he performed a cover of Richard Wright's Breakthrough from the Broken China album, which I mentioned in the previous video. Breakthrough is a song that David had written a guitar solo for, but wasn't used on the final mix of the album. Richard Wright came on, played and sang the song, and David at last got his guitar solo released. This DVD is pretty much essential. It also contains a new studio recording of a cover of William Shakespeare's Sonnet 18, which I think is "Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day?" I think, but I haven't heard that for a couple of years. Well worth finding if you can find that. Then the solo career has kind of carried on. 2002, Roger Waters came to the UK with his "I Am a Bloody Genius" tour. He also released the ambitiously titled "Flickering Flame," the solo years volume 1, which, considering he's released I think 2 singles and an album, so it's 1992 with new studio material, was I think pretty ambitious. Flickering Flame was a kind of a best of. It features a number of songs which were not on any of his albums previously. It's got a cover version of "Knocking on Heaven's Door" on. It's got a demo of Flickering Flame. It's got Each Small Candle. It's got a demo of a song called Lost Boys Calling. The version on this of Lost Boys Calling is terrible because Roger is very much out of tune. There is a recording of the song which was for a soundtrack. I think the film was called 1900, which I think had Eddie Van Halen and Ennio Morricone on the final version as well. That is much, 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 much better indeed. Roger has some vocal limitations, and he was definitely singing at the very limits of and beyond his range on the version that's on this. It's unessential, worth picking up, but unessential. So 2002, done and dusted. 2003, nothing very much happened. 2004, pretty much out of nowhere, Roger Waters released a Japanese-only CD EP called To Kill a Child, backed with a track called Leaving Beirut, which was, I think, the first fruits of his album sessions for an album called Heartland. Heartland was never released, certainly not completed, and this was generally only available by download. I think the only physical release of it was on CD in Japan. I paid £35 for this. It's not worth £35, but it was the missing link in my Roger Waters collection. And following that, I've also neglected to mention that in 2001, a Syd Barrett best of was released called Wouldn't You Miss Me, and it contained a previously unreleased track called Bob Dylan Blues, and it contained, I think, Two of a Kind as well from the radio session. Bob Dylan Blues is funny, really funny. It's just Syd Barrett doing a parody of a Bob Dylan song. And following from that, 2006 saw the release of, hang on a second, my Superman-like transformation of David Gilmour's third solo album and his first post-Pink Floyd album, On an Island. On an Island is wrapped up with some incredible memories for me. It's the first time I got to see first time I got to see two members of Pink Floyd on stage at the same time. It's the first time that I got to see Pink Floyd perform with Nick Mason. It's a really staggering set of memories. So On an Island, 10 songs. Rick Wright plays piano on most of the songs. It's very clearly the guy from Pink Floyd, but not in Pink Floyd. It's got very, very similar kind of echoes of Pink Floyd's sound and style, but it's a more mature, more personal, more intimate kind of record. It's smaller in scope. It's got less of the big sweeping stadium gestures. It's got less of the very sad, very, very general lyrics. It's even got some happiness in it in This Heaven, which is pretty surprising. It is as close to a Pink Floyd album as you can get, pretty much, without actually having Pink Floyd in it. And I completely understand why David Gilmour didn't want to gear up the Pink Floyd machine. It's a very big machine. It automatically puts you into stadiums. There's automatically lasers. There's automatically all manner of other things which are going on. Whereas I think if David thought, well, actually, the people that really like me are still going to be interested in me performing live if I perform live under my own name. And he wanted to free himself, I think, of the weight of some of the expectations that come with the Pink Floyd name. So he went out on a solo tour, which was, in my opinion, very, very, very successful. So the first public show of the solo tour was at the London Mermaid Theatre on the 7th of March 2006, which was billed as pretty much his 60th birthday show. It was an invite-only show to competition winners, to 600 people, and I was there. And not only was I there, I got there at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so I thought, I want to sit on front row to see David Gilmour in a theatre to 600 people. I thought that's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I kind of guessed where they would go. So I was sat probably, just in between. David Gilmour was over there, maybe 8 feet away from me over there. Rick Wright was maybe 9 feet away from me over there. And I saw them perform songs from his solo album and Comfortably Numb and High Hopes. And it was great. It was just blisteringly good. It was a gig to go in the history books as a historic, I can't believe it kind of moment. It's very, very good show. It has been released, apart from one song, on a number of live box sets that came out with the tour. So I'm going to touch upon those. So the first one of those is David Gilmour live at the Albert Hall. The second one is David Gilmour live at Gdansk. Between these two releases, the whole of the Mermaid show was issued, with the exception of one song. But the tour was pretty busy. I got to see two shows on that tour. So I got to see the Mermaid show. I also got to see the Royal Albert Hall show. There's a number of other releases that came out around about the same time that I think are worth kind of mentioning. Smile was released as a single. When you went to the Albert Hall, there was a card that was on your seat alongside a sticker that allowed you to burn your own CD of the song, so you can put the sticker on the CD and have your own CD single. But if you didn't like that and you actually wanted to own old school retro CD singles, there was a proper retail CD single of that. There was a CD single of On an Island. It contains a radio edit missing a verse. I never got round to buying it, and that's a decision I still stand by today. There are a number of other kind of releases that came out. This is a live and in session DVD that you could order from his website. It was also packaged as an extra DVD with the CD and DVD edition of the On an Island album that was sold at Walmart in America. It contains one song from the Albert Hall, one song from Abbey Road, and I think it's a 6-song radio session for AOL. So that's effectively studio recordings by the band, which was really very it's essential watching, and I'm sure will be included on a box set at some point. 2007 saw the release of David Gilmour live at the Royal Albert Hall. We went to see the last night of that tour. I was moving house. The tour was announced the day that I moved house. An extra show was added a week later. And the extra show was announced and added the week later on the very day that I got my broadband installed. So if the show had been announced a day earlier, I wouldn't have seen David Gilmour at the Royal Albert Hall. I bought 2 tickets through the band, through David's website. I was on the ground floor. We were probably about row 14. It was expensive. It was about £100, but I was seeing David Gilmour and Rick Wright from Pink Floyd with Guy Pratt and Dick Parry at the Royal Albert Hall from the 14th row. And the show that we saw, Nick Mason came on and played drums on Wish You Were Here and on Comfortably Numb. This release is really, really good, by the way. It's historic. It also features, I think, the last indoor performance of Echoes, which also had the best heckle I think I've ever heard, is just at the end of High Hopes. The whole of the Albert Hall had gone very, very quiet, deathly quiet. And the night that I saw it, there was a voice that came right up from the gods and went, "Give us a ping, Rick!" And everyone kind of laughed. And then Rick just went, "Ding!" and started Echoes. And I saw 2 members of Pink Floyd perform Echoes live in front of my eyes, which was one hell of an experience with a heck of a lot of lasers in it. We didn't get to see David Bowie. David Bowie performed on the first night, but we got to see Nick Mason, who was on the 3rd night, and that's good enough for me. In fact, getting to see any member of Pink Floyd live is good enough for me. There are a number of other releases that came around the time of the Albert Hall. There's this, which was the promotional CD, which features Wish You Were Here, The Blue, and Comfortably Numb with David Bowie. This is the only place you can get Comfortably Numb with David Bowie in a physical format, a CD or anything like that. There was also a single that was released around the time, which was Arnold Lane, which was David Gilmour and David Bowie, alongside David's cover version of Syd Barrett's Dark Globe. As I mentioned, there was an Abbey Road session, which if you bought the Royal Albert Hall, I think, DVD, or you contributed to American Public Radio, NPR, you were given a PBS exclusive, Public Broadcasting Services exclusive CD of David Gilmour live at Abbey Road, which was the last show of the On an Island era, where David played with his band in Abbey Road, Studio B, with about 30 people on the balcony watching. This features The Blue, On an Island, Take a Breath and Smile, There is an acoustic version of Echoes that wasn't originally planned, that the band played, and that was the last time that any part of Echoes was played. Now that Live at the Albert Hall came out in 2008. It was followed in it came out in 2007. And it was followed in 2008 by David Gilmour Live at Gdansk, which was the last major public show from the tour. It was recorded with an orchestra, I think the Shipyards in Gdansk. And this deluxe edition contains 2 CDs, which is the full show, apart from one song. It contains a DVD with about 2 hours of concert footage. It's missing a couple of songs because there's a lot of duplication between it and the Royal Albert Hall. It features an extra DVD, a 4th DVD, that has 3 songs from the Mermaid Theatre, 2 songs for AOL, 3 songs at Abbey Road, and what's called Barn Jams, which is David and his band just noodling about in David's barn. It also features a 5/1 version of the On an Island album, and disc 5 contains an extra CD of extra oddities and bits and bobs from the tour. Again, pictures of millionaires in the book. There's a nice, tasty, lovely, jubbly, big fat poster. There's an envelope, which I think might know what I don't even know what's in here. Probably some postcards, bits and bobs, 5 discs, 3 audio CDs, 2 from Gdansk, 1 of extra tracks and B-sides, and other songs that were performed on odd little dates of the show and the tour, and 2 DVDs. Lovely package. The vinyl edition of that is extremely expensive. It has not been reissued. Sadly, that was the last release that Rick Wright played on. Rick died of cancer on the 15th of September 2008, and I saw the last time that David and Rick performed live at the premiere for the Albert Hall film, which had a one-time showing in the cinema at the London Leicester Square Odeon, before the theatre showed the film of Live at the Albert Hall. David performed Castella Rising on guitar, and I was on the front row. And at the end, Rick and David and Guy and Phil and Steve on drums performed a version of Island Jam, which was the last time that Rick performed live. And I was at the front row for that. So, yeah, you know what? I am a lucky bastard, and I don't mind telling you that. It's not been cheap, and it's not come without effort. So, around about the same time of David Gilmour touring, Roger Waters was offered an enormous amount of money to reform Pink Floyd and perform live. And he couldn't do that, but what he could do was go out in his own right and perform The Dark Side of the Moon live as a solo artist. In 2006 to 2008, Roger did his second solo tour of the post Pink Floyd era. Let's take his 4th solo tour, and he performed the whole of Dark Side of the Moon in order, in sequence, across arenas and stadiums. The show was never officially released. This is a bootleg DVD of a show in Argentina, which is taken from the video screens, jumbotrons, what a word, that were broadcasting to the back of the stadium. It's a really good show. It was very, very strange to watch Roger Waters performing Dark Side of the Moon. I'd only seen Dark Side of the Moon on television before, and it's not my favourite Pink Floyd album. But it was a really interesting experience. But what I did find is that Dark Side of the Moon was an album to watch when I wanted to explore inner space. So it's one of the very few albums that I can just listen to and just let my mind just wander through various ideas. And I very much felt that when I was watching that live, is that I was feeling the music as opposed to experiencing or dancing or anything like that. When I watch Pink Floyd and Pink Floyd related bands, I tend to just go inside my own head and kind of just wander about in there. It's a really good DVD. I would recommend that you watch it, but I don't recommend necessarily that you pay for it. I bought it in the days when bootleg DVDs were actually a thing. Now, in 2005, around about the time that Roger was approached with Dark Side of the Moon, he released this, which is an opera in 3 parts, I think, 3 acts, which translates as There Is Hope. This is a promotional CD of it. Roger produced it. He's not audible on it. I don't think I've ever heard it more than once or twice. There's some great lyrics in it, but you know, Roger's very, very good at great lyrics, isn't he? That's what he's good at. He's not necessarily good at opera. Just makes you think that he's got into the whole era of, you know, Paul McCartney and everything that goes with that. Generally, you know, rock stars shouldn't write operas. I've never encountered one that I liked, and I'm not about to start now. In 2007, during the middle of the Dark Side of the Moon tour, Roger released a one-off single called Hello, I Love You, which was taken from the soundtrack to a film called, I think, The Last Mimsy. It's okay, but, you know, at that point you just go, well, where's your creativity, Roger? You know, you haven't made an album for 15 years. Shit, or get off the pot and stop playing live and start recording things. There's a number of versions of this. I think there's a 10-inch, there's a 12-inch. It contains an edit and an album version. It's a good song. You know, Roger hasn't written a bad song, but he hasn't written enough songs recently either. So we're going to move over to what happened after that. And what happened after that is this. This is one of my favourite t-shirts. I bought this at Wembley Stadium in 2013. It says, "Trust us." And what it does do is, and I'm running out of the chronology a little bit, but Roger then went to tour the Wall again, this time properly, hopefully, to wipe the memories of the appalling Berlin show out of our brains. So he toured for, I think, 3 years between 2010 and 2013. I saw what was, I think, the second from last show, so the 220-something performance of this, of the Wall, which had new video technology. It had, you know, new equipment, a new presentation. I mean, it was unquestionably a very, very good show, but also really, really feeding into Roger's ego that he was the creative genius and soul talent behind Pink Floyd. It's available in a multitude of formats. I've shown you the vinyl. I'm showing you the special edition of the Blu-ray here, which opens up like this. There's 2 Blu-rays in 2 packets, and then there's a book that goes with it as well. The book has a number of photographs from the show, and this is, I think, where Roger's dad's grave is in Anzio. It's an impressive show, very, very good, but I wouldn't want to see it more than once. I certainly couldn't play it live 220 times in a row. And like all of the Roger Waters live shows, Roger turned his creativity into representing his previous activity, his previous recordings with Pink Floyd and as a solo artist, into thematically linked stage shows that told a story. Really taking a cue there from U2, who did a very, very similar thing and still do. But I was at the point where I was going, come on, Roger, it's been 20 years since you've released a solo album. Stop revisiting the past and start actually making other music. Now, I'm leaping around a little because primarily I've forgotten to mention this, which is an album by The Orb and David Gilmour. It's called Metallic Spears. It features David on guitar, and it's based on a remix of a cover of a track called, I think, Chicago, that David recorded in 2010. The Orb remixed it, and then they remixed it into an album-length suite. David's never done anything quite like that before, and I don't think he ever quite intended to do anything quite like that before. But what he did do is, we've got a David Gilmour album that hardly anybody knows about, which is The Orb, Metallic Spears. It's an interesting ambient album with swathes of David Gilmour guitar on it. It's not something you'll listen to particularly frequently, but it is worth a listen. So we're now up to speed with 2015, and there was a couple of things that happened in 2015. The first one was this, which was the remix of Roger Waters' Amused to Death I've shown you the picture disc earlier. This is the edition that's on Blu-ray. The Blu-ray does have some previously unreleased instrumental material on the menus, but that's it. You know, it sounds fantastic in 5.1, but it's not, you know, all that and a bag of chips. The next thing that happens, and again, here's another wonderful Superman style transformation. As I just, but don't worry, I won't take all the clothes off, by the way. Was the release of David Gilmour's to date his final solo album, which is called Rattle That Lock. And Rattle That Lock came in a number of formats. It was a single LP. The album is, you know, a very good Pink Floyd-esque release. It starts off with the standard instrumental where David plays guitar fantastically. It's got an appearance by Rick Wright, using archival recordings on the track A Boat Lies Waiting. And there's a couple of songs which sound very much like they could have been Pink Floyd songs, but since there isn't a Pink Floyd, they will be David Gilmour songs. Now, the version of the album to get is this one, which comes with a DVD. And I'm just going to open this up for you to kind of just have a look through here. The box set version contains a photograph of some lightning, not quite sure why. A hardback book. It's got a poster of a contented multimillionaire. It's got a postcard in an envelope, maybe that's designed to be some stamps with a Paris postmark. I've never opened that. It's got a copy of John Milton's Paradise Lost, which was a book which was, I think, influential to the lyrics, and it's got a CD and a DVD, and the DVD is where, you know, where the business is, frankly. What you'll notice, by the way, is that the picture on the back of the album is David holding a guitar. On here, 2 other pictures of him holding different guitars, so, you know, keep you on your toes. The DVD has 4 extra barn jams filmed in January 2007, which, again, as we've mentioned, there are 3 barn jams which are on the Live in Gdansk mega set. So you've got 7 largely improvised blues instrumentals recorded by David and Rick and Guy and Steve DeStanislao in 2007. There's interviews with the animators, Alice Dare and Jock Mooney, and Jock and I follow each other on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and he seems a generally lovely man. There's the promotional film for Rattle That Lock, and the promotional film for The Girl in the Yellow Dress. There's a making of the album as well. There's 4 extra audio tracks on the DVD. So there's an orchestral mix of The Girl in the Yellow Dress. There's an extended full-length mix of Rattle That Lock, which is absolutely the best version of the track. There's a youth mix, which isn't so good, and there's an edit of it. Now, since nobody was buying CD singles anymore, they decided to take the audio that was going to go onto the CD single and instead put it as bonus audio on the DVD of Rattle That Lock. To date, this is the last David Gilmour studio album. If you like The Division Bell, if you like On an Island, this is right up your street. You know, he's just growing into maturity with grace and style. You could argue it's a bit boring that he's you know, not working with Pink Floyd anymore, but I'd rather artists be happy, content, still making music, rather than either unhappy or not making music at all. One little oddity to keep your eyes out for 2015 was this, which is called David Gilmour and Friends. It's a CD that was cover mounted with Mojo magazine. It features a cover version of the Beatles' Here, There and Everywhere by David and Joe Gilmour. It features a couple of songs by artists that David has collaborated with or worked with previously, but there's an unreleased exclusive Beatles track or Beatles cover by David Gilmour on this CD. I get the impression that David's been recording cover versions quite quietly over the past few years, minding his own business. Okay, so what happened after that? Well, David went on tour. as you can probably tell by the fact that I'm wearing a David Gilmour Rattle That Lock Live at the Albert Hall t-shirt. He played, I think, 10 shows at the Albert Hall. He played 5 in October 2015. He played a one-off show for the Teenage Cancer Trust in April 2016. I didn't get to go to that one. And he played a final 5 shows at the Albert Hall in September 2016, which to date are his last live solo shows. And I went to the penultimate night of that. Again, we were sat on the floor. That was quite an experience, but he changed his band around. So for the 2015 part of the tour, he had John Carrion and he had Phil Manzanera in the band, which had been with him on the On an Island tour. For the September 2016 shows, he changed that. So Nick Kamen, who I think it's Nick Kamen. It could be someone else. I'll have to check by looking at the credits here. But he had Chester Kamen was playing guitar. Chester Kamen had played on some of Roger's material. He also had 2 replacement keyboardists, as John had left and Rick had died. And then those 2 of the shows on that tour were released as David Gilmour Live in Pompeii. So coming back to the scene of the crime from the Pink Floyd film that was recorded in 1971. This is available on a triple vinyl set. Sorry, not a triple, a quadruple vinyl set in 2 gatefold sleeves. Again, quite expensive when it came out. Keep your eye out on the Amazon deals and warehouse prices to get an affordable version of that. The LP version of it comes again with pictures of the live shows and text that come with it. It's a great live album, very, very suitable. Features and a number of Pink Floyd tracks, as well as most of the Rattle That Lock album, a couple of songs off On an Island. Features What Do You Want From Me, The Great Gig in the Sky, Wish You Were Here, Money, High Hopes, One of These Days. And the solo material sits very, very comfortably next to the Pink Floyd material that he's recorded there. This is again, if you only get one version of it, this is the one to get. It's a CD and Blu-ray or a box set. Probably about £40 when it came out, I think. Again, it's got postcards, it's got a gig poster, it's got an interview with the historian Mary Beard about Pompeii, it's got a book, and pictures of the show and other stuff that was going on there. So on the 2 CDs contain the full show. There's 2 Blu-rays. This Blu-ray contains, again, the full show with a short documentary about Pompeii on it. The second Blu-ray is more interesting. It's got about 40 minutes of footage from the 2015 tour, filmed at a stadium in America, and it's got about half an hour recorded at Rocklaw 2016 with the NFM Rocklaw Philharmonic Orchestra, again in Poland. So effectively you get a substantial chunk of extra live footage. You also get 4 documentaries: Europe 2015, South America 2015, North America 2016, and Europe 2016. And you also get a BBC documentary called Wider Horizons that's 75 minutes long. And although it's a promotional kind of thing that was used for the release of the album and to promote the album, it's an interesting insight into life as David Gilmour now. Okay, and with that we kind of wrap up the David Gilmour solo career, but there's still a couple more things to happen. In 2017, Roger Waters at last released another solo album called Is This the Life We Really Want? This is a great album. It really, really reminds me of Pink Floyd's Animals. It's dark, it's dense, it's very rhythmic, it's got very few guitar solos in it. It's got a kind of misanthropic kind of approach. Not misogynist, misanthropic, by the way. Misanthropy is hating all human beings. And it's a concept album around, the shape and direction that humanity is travelling in at the moment. Is the direction that humanity travelling in, is that the life that we really want? A life of war and conflict? And it's got a couple of fantastic songs on it. It's got Picture That and Broken Bones. Picture That sounds just like something that should have been on Animals. Deja Vu is a beautiful song. it's got this lovely line about, and it feels like deja vu and the sun comes down and I'm still missing you. And that always reminds me of somebody that I miss. And it's just a great album. I mean, really, it's as good as anything that any member of Pink Floyd has recorded in a solo capacity in the entire of their life. And I'm really glad that Nigel Godrich, I think, prodded and probed Roger to actually releasing this, because I think Roger had a set of creative constipation and a fear that he was never going to be able to match up to his previous standards or expectations that there had been around it. And thank God Roger actually did it, because it's a great record and I strongly recommend it. This was followed with a tour, and Roger toured for 2 years. This is a t-shirt for the Hyde Park show, which was, I think, one of the few outdoor shows on the tour. The tour was brilliant. It was released very recently as Us+Them, which calls itself it calls itself the definitive document of that unmissable event. This was recorded over 4 nights at Amsterdam, plus some extra insert shots from elsewhere. It's 2.5 hours long. Has a couple of major flaws in it. I think the first one is 2 of the songs that were played every night of the tour are absent from the main body of the show. So Smell the Roses, which was right at the climax of the show, and Comfortably Numb, which was the very last song of the show, have been moved into the bonus features. It doesn't make any sense doing that whatsoever, because actually what happens is the concept behind Us+Them is almost like the thoughts and the feelings of a refugee as they're kind of going through perhaps some of what they think might be their final thoughts. And the concept behind Us+Them is around money and power, and how with and without, and after all, that's what all the fighting is all about. So it's about the idea of money and power being the only things that cause really human conflict in whatever form money and power come. And Smell the Roses has a visual effect that's really important. So there's a number of motifs that appear throughout the film. There's like a big silver ball that symbolises authority that first appears in Welcome to the Machine. There's the pig that appears during Dogs, and there's imagery of Donald Trump. There's imagery of the pyramid and the prism, which comes from the Dark Side of the Moon, that later joins up there. And it was a pretty amazing experience to be at Hyde Park and to actually suddenly realise as the sun went down that I was standing inside the prism, whilst of this album cover, whilst Roger Waters was playing songs from Dark Side of the Moon. It's very well presented. Now, I haven't got the vinyl version of this because it costs £40 and it's missing 2 songs. It's only just come out. I will pick it up when it is cheaper. But it's if you have an interest in Roger Waters, it is worth getting. It was a great show. Really enjoyed it. And around about the same time, Roger recorded this, which is The Soldier's Tale by Igor Stravinsky. He narrates the short story, which is set to music. You don't need it. It's not worth buying at all. But the final to date solo Pink Floyd release is one heck of a surprise, actually. I've kind of touched upon it earlier. You will have seen this t-shirt in a previous episode. In 2018, very unexpectedly, the shy and retiring Nick Mason came together to form a band called Nick Mason's Sourceful of Secrets, and to perform all the songs from the early years of Pink Floyd that members of Pink Floyd hadn't played live for many years. So the set list for David Gilmour and for Roger Waters largely ignore everything before Dark Side of the Moon, with the occasional exception of Fat Old Sun by David and One of These Days and Second Controls for the Heart of the Sun by Roger. And so what that means is all the songs which I talked about at the early part, so Atom Heart Mother, See Emily Play, all those type of songs were not being performed live by members of Pink Floyd. David occasionally played Astronomy Domine and occasionally played Arnold Lane, but that was pretty much it. A Sourceful of Secrets, More, Atom Heart Mother, Medal. David has played very little of those songs live, apart from Echoes in 2006. But Nick, at the grand old age of 74, decided to start a solo career by playing those songs live. And the lineup that we've got for this is Don Beckin, who I think and had done some keyboard and tech work for Rick Wright when he was alive. It's Guy Pratt, who played bass with Pink Floyd and David Gilmour from 1987 onwards. There's Lee Harris, who's a guitarist, and Gary Kemp, who I think used to be a member of Spandau Ballet. There are some idiots on the internet that want to know why they aren't playing Spandau Ballet songs. I mean, that's the saying of somebody missing the goal by such a wide margin that actually they've gone and kicked it onto the train tracks next to the field. This is a really, really good release. Well, I was at the show at the Camden Roundhouse that was filmed and released for this. It comes in a multitude of formats. This one is the 3-disc version, 2 CDs and a DVD alongside a book. It's a very, very nice, very affordable package in a die-cut sleeve. 2 CDs and the DVD featuring the full show recorded over 2 nights at Camden. Pictures of some lovely smiling people who look very, very happy, and a booklet and an interview and some explanatory text. This is a really, really good release, actually. If you wanted to know what modern Pink Floyd would sound like performing old Pink Floyd songs, this is pretty much the closest you can get to it, really. It's really very good, and I think it alongside Roger's moves in the year 1999, it allows Nick to reclaim his role in the band and his contribution to Pink Floyd over the decades. This t-shirt, by the way, goes with the live release. It has the set list on the back, and I don't mind buying the t-shirt from the live album because I was at the recording of the live album. That brings it all up to speed as to where we are right now as of 2019. There was one other thing I forgot to mention, primarily because it wasn't in my immediate sightline, and I should have mentioned this sooner, but hopefully you can forgive me for not mentioning this. Now, I mentioned Syd Barrett's albums, the Madcap Laughs and Barrett. This is the 1993 reissue box set of called Crazy Diamond, and this features 3 CDs with bonus tracks. If you can find this, if you haven't got the Syd Barrett albums, by the way, and you want them, and you can find this is the version to go for, because it's got the extra unissued takes. So it's got, I think, 6 extra takes on the Madcap Laughs. It's got, I think, 6 on Barrett, and I think it's got 5 on Opal. This came out in 1993. I think actually I did mention it, come to think of it. But again, this is worth picking up. So that kind of brings us to full circle, really, because as to date, the last release by a member of Pink Floyd is Nick Mason and the Sourceful of Secrets live at the Camden Roundhouse performing the songs from the early Pink Floyd albums. And that brings us back to, isn't this where we started? Hopefully that's been of use to you. It's taken me far longer than I expected it would take for me to do this. I thought this might be 45 minutes, and as it turned out, it's been something like 6 hours, which is ridiculous. And I've been doing 2 of these a day, 90 minutes a day. I'm just going to go off and have a break now. I'm going to have a drink. I'm going to toast to the winds of change that have happened recently in the world, and stay beautiful. I will see you soon. If you have comments, questions, suggestions, life advice, things like, for God's sake, don't grow a moustache, anything like that, leave it in the comments box. Comment on the Twitter page. I'm going to go off. I'm going to have a sit down. I'm going to have a chocolate muffin, and I'll do another one of these at some other point in the future when I can be bothered. Probably not tomorrow. Thank you very much. See you soon.